Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special. Now, in the built environment, us architects, architectural assistants, wherever you are in architecture practice, we're dealing with people on the design team, and we're going to be speaking to other consultants as well. Now, often while you're building a building, you will send stuff or consult with the planning consultant. Now, I've heard a few people scream, going, God damn, what are they doing? But I've also heard a few people say amazing compliments about a very good, in particular, planning consultant. Now, today we're going to unpack what a planning consultant does, but also we're going to join my guest who has just set up their planning business, going from a large corporate background to now building up their own business as well. So I have got here Greg, the fantastic Mr. Eagle Planning. How are you, Greg? You okay?
I'm very well, yeah. Thank you, Stephen. And yeah, great intro. I'll take that all day.
There you go. I should say you're not Mr. Eagle Planning. You're Greg from Planning, Eagle Planning, but that's how it goes.
Yeah,
When you're on the roll, that's how we are. Now, Greg, we met out and about. However, for those who haven't met you yet, do you want to tell me briefly a little bit about yourself?
sure. Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, so Greg Blaquiere, and I am from Eagle Planning and Development, and I started Eagle Planning sort of last year. Coming up to
Woo!
this summer will be a year in business. And yeah,
Congrats.
Eagle Planning and Development does what it says on the tin, and that is the sense of primarily planning consultancy, and that is my background in planning. Started nearly 20 years ago as a planning officer in some London boroughs at Croydon and then Kensington and Chelsea. Before I then went into private sector work at planning consultancies at Terence O'Rourke and then RPS. And then, yeah, last year started my own company to take everything that I've learned and offer it as my own business. And yeah, it is primarily a planning consultancy, but the development arm is what I also wanted to get into, taking that side of the skill set to almost put forward my own developments. And so it's wearing two hats and being a planning consultant that is now getting into that world. I feel like that offers clients and potential partners, a good string to the bow, as they say.
Excellent. Well, we're going to wind back, but first of all, congrats, because passing your first year in business is the milestone. I think most businesses don't pass 5 years, so you're a fifth of the way there already. I'm not. I'm like 3 years in, and it's been full on. So anyone that does a business, I think, first of all, you should be applauded. Now, we will get onto the business stuff, but I want to wind back because little birdie told me, well, that's you, because you're the little birdie that's told me all the information beforehand, but you didn't go into planning. You didn't study planning or anything at first. So you fell into it. So what happened, Greg, if we go
I
wind back
did,
the
yeah.
clocks?
So when I was at uni, I got a degree in television and film production,
Yeah.
and wanted to work in TV and was trying to do that. And as we all know, for every business, it can sometimes be quite difficult to do. But I was temping in between and doing little work experience roles here and there for different production companies. Even did a month on Crime Watch at, at the
Oh, wow.
BBC, which was good. But yeah, and as sort of you're picking things up and you're beginning to try and get into the world of work, I was temping at Croydon Council and various different departments. And one department, I ended up in the planning department in their admin team, sort of checking in applications and beginning to get familiar with that world, which was a really good place to end up in, having never really entered that world before. It began to be something that I took an interest in, and it was sort of in between sort of uni holidays and doing at the time seasons in Ibiza, and then in the last season in Ibiza, jobs were coming up, and so the manager before I left said, maybe you should apply for these junior grade planning officer roles, which was great to be offered that, and yeah, applied for that, thankfully got it, and at the same time being sponsored to do a master's. And whilst that wasn't directly linked to film production, it was linked enough that meant I could just go to do the master's rather than redo an undergrad. So it was win-win all round, and yeah, the rest is history.
Oh, brilliant. Well, fair play. Can you paint me a picture? Because I've never been in the planning office. So what was it like going in there? And what's the typical, maybe on the junior end, before we get to all the stuff you do now, what kind of thing did you do at the start way back when?
Yeah, at the start, and I'm sure it's really different now. If we're talking, what was it? Yeah, 2005, 2006. That you walk in and there's a lot of paper in a former planning department, and a lot of maps on these huge sort of cloths that you had to sort of go through. And yeah, it was microfiche data that you would put in old planning applications and search through that. So now in the world we're currently in, I imagine there's far less paper. But yeah, it was busy, phones ringing, quite a large planning department at the time at Croydon. A lot of applications going on, a lot of officers, and yeah, me as a junior, sort of admin support at the time where you start that in the career. It is, yeah, working through those stacks of papers and applications that come through, marking them all up, and ultimately then you hand those over to the officers.
Okay, fair play. Because I feel like sometimes the planning department gets a lot of stick,
They do.
Yeah, so you were the butt of all the jokes back then, was it?
Oh, and you're the one who answers the phone and has to deal with quite often someone who's not very
Oh,
happy for
really?
whatever reason. So whether it is, that initial sort of neighbour wanting to know how they can object, or an applicant wondering where their application is before you sort of are the gateway to the officer, it's you to sort of deal with that. But I think it's a great grounding,
Yeah,
working, sort of call it on the front line to a point, and I everyone, providing they're happy with sort of what they've done, will always say that's a great route to do. But I do think working in a local authority, if you're a planner, you do get exposed to quite a lot early on in your career that
yeah,
perhaps on the flip side, sometimes when you are in a consultancy, when you're junior, you get shielded from things sometimes, because either, the way the projects work, you're not
yeah,
necessarily out there in effect and going on site and making a recommendation, even if you're starting just looking at, call it a residential extension and a conservatory, you are still the one making that judgment, whether it is acceptable in design and acceptable in terms of its impact, and making that, when you're in your early 20s. I think you then scale up as you go, but it's you doing it. It's you have to stand by your recommendations and make that judgment, which you then apply throughout the rest of your career.
fair enough. Wow. And so you did that for many years in the local authority, like you said, and then you went to the private sector. What was it like switching from public to private in planning? Were they just totally different worlds? Was there some similarities?
They are different, but as a planner, whether you're a case officer or a planning consultant, I would say in theory your goal is the same, of trying to get something from A to B in its best shape, get
Yeah,
that planning permission, and get whatever it is ideally to be built. Um, there are clear differences of who is applying the pressure. When you're in a um, local authority, the pressures will, yeah, it can be from the public, it can be applicants, it can be, management, it can be councillors, it can, yeah, and then the pressure is on you to deliver through your caseload that can at times be quite hefty. Um, Pressure at a sort of a consultant stage is also all sort of leading up to that submission part and it getting that application in. So it's almost like the relay that you hand the baton over to from the consultant to the officer, as I say, ideally with the same goal. But yeah, I think both are good. Both have been a good way to doing what I'm doing now, for starting up Eagle.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, as I said, yeah, it's all a good sort of career path.
Yeah. No, it seems really, really cool. I think a lot of the listeners, maybe it's because of my bias at the start, because I come from an architecture background, an architectural assistant, but you've probably worked, Greg, with a lot of architects over the years. I was wondering, because now we've got the flip side, so we've got some architects listening, right? Um, what, in your opinion, makes a really productive relationship between an architect and for someone like yourself who's doing the more planning role? Have you seen some successes of where you've worked together at the start, and maybe have you seen some things which where maybe things have deteriorated and learned lessons along the way and how to do it right with an architect?
Yeah, I think I'd say most, if I can't think of any bad, which is
Yeah,
hopefully a good
yeah,
thing. But I think, and as with any sort of team, it's about um, making sure people know their roles, respect those roles,
yeah,
and as and when things do come up, particularly as a planner, I would never say that I am the designer, and it can always be not seen if you're giving sort of advice on someone's plans that it's taken as a criticism. We're all the advice is given on what's it going to take to get planning permission, with a
yeah,
view ultimately now also what's it going, and understanding that of what's it also going to take planning permission, but is it good, is it buildable, it's understanding all that as a planner. That's quite key. And if you're working with an architect who also understands why you might be giving advice, um, interpreting that feedback sometimes from councils in a way that it's shaping things through from policy to how we're going to get there. It's that's the way I sort of see my role of speaking to architects. It's never to a point of criticism, but it's how
yeah.
we're going to shape something from here positively to get the result that they want. And I think it's always been quite good, but then maybe you blank out the bad ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, of course. And is there any like little advice perhaps for the architect to get the most out of the planning consultant? Do you ever?
I think I think sharing ideas as early as possible.
Yeah,
I think what I've sort of come into in my new business is quite, it's not always, I'm not always brought into projects at the earliest. Sometimes I'm now sort of coming in even post planning,
later.
sometimes when there's been a problem. And it's sort of the different sort of spheres now and clients and projects that I can get involved in is I think way broader than when I've been in previous consultancies, that usually you are part of a team from the outset. So sometimes now I'm sort of looking through a retrospective lens, saying, well, if you'd done X, Y, and Z, we might not be in this position now. But as we are, this is what we can do. I
Yeah,
think it's always well worth, even if it's not a full instruction of, a full, if you are sort of a staggered appointment later for whatever reason, I think it's always well worth engaging early, even if you've got a few sketches, even if if you are the architect and the client has come to you and said, I want this on the site, and you go away and start drawing things up. I think it's well worth getting a planner involved, even as a sense check from that stage. Is there something that they're missing, or something they've not thought about sometimes, about
yeah,
doing something in terms of whether it's land use, whether it's building height, whatever it could be? Earlier the better, because it can save time and cost and problems arising later to get that sort of early feedback.
yeah. Fair play. Hey, yeah, I think that transcends a lot of roles as well. But clearly, from what you've seen, it's also key here. But fair play. So, in the local authority and private, you're probably working on these big sectors. Now, when we met a year ago, you were on the cusp of doing something quite big in your world, Greg, which is setting up your business now, right? So, first of all, congrats. I know we joked about it earlier, but well done. It's brilliant. How's that been going from a more, perhaps a larger company now to building up a business on your own from the start?
Yeah, it's been, I'd say, pleasantly, surprisingly good, if I can. And what I think is the biggest sort of mindset change is going from, working in larger practices and with set clients, but also just the regularity. I've always had a job. So I've always known, thankfully, that I'm going to be paid on X date
Yeah,
and live my life that way, that you can do that. And I think it's that mindset shift of, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to be doing in 2 to 3 months' time. But then speaking to sort of a lot of new business owners, or self-employed people, it's just get used to that, because the peaks and troughs are what they are.
yeah,
Whilst we would all love a pipeline, I do sort of find it quite exciting, and therefore the need to continually, grow and put yourself out there and talk to people. Whilst you did all that, it's a slightly different sphere, I would say, of where I go now to speak to people and hopefully find business. And so far, so good.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? So as, perhaps this the in the immediate thing, the scale of the projects has been different then, Greg. Has it been in one way like at the start of when we were talking, you mentioned about the smaller projects. Now with Eagle, it seems like you do a variety of different scales, sizes, sectors, and stuff. What kind of projects have you been up to at the moment then?
Yeah, I think that's where you can look at your career path. And yeah, when I started out as a junior case officer dealing with the basic applications. Then you steadily go through working on sort of large scale urban regeneration projects and new sort of settlement extensions and up to, thousands of homes we're talking about. Where I'm at now, it's actually been quite mixed, which is great. So a few weeks ago, I'm representing a client dealing with a strategic scale site at some local plan hearings of 1,500 homes. But then because I'm doing that all in the day, at night then I'm picking up the rest of my clients, and I'm then dealing with single house plots, or even very sort of change of use to HMOs and things like that. I kind of am finding it good to go back and deal with everything again. So I've picked up a case that someone's had some enforcement issues with a marquee at a listed building at a pub, and it's like, okay, right, let's go back to it. Well, so on one hand, it's dealing with strategic scale stuff, and then on the other, it's all the minor. So I am now covering way more than I had done in sort of call it the last 5-6 years, but I find that good and exciting
Yeah,
because I can do it all and I have done it all. So I think when I was starting this business, a lot of contacts were saying, well, what are you going to, specialize in? And it's, well, other than planning, that's my specialism. I can and we'll do it all. And even the smaller projects are satisfying because you're still getting that goal for and achieving that aim for a client who needs your help.
yeah.
And yeah, if I can help them get to that point and get them there as quickly as possible. That's the aim.
That's the goal. And it makes sense to me as well, because why pigeonhole yourself in one sector? I sometimes find that a bit irritating when people say that. They go, oh, you should be the specialist in one thing. Well, that's all well and good. But if there was a particular sector which was dropping off, then I don't think that's very intelligent. So maybe working on private residential as well as you mentioned pubs or commercial properties. I think that's probably a sensible thing to do, isn't it? I mean, just while we're on that subject, I mean, what kind of range of stuff have you been involved on? Is there anything weird and wonderful, or do you tend to do everything from the pubs to the homes? Or
Weird and wonderful. I think in terms, I think broadly it has been residential, as I think probably a lot, unless you are a planning specialist, a
yeah,
lot, you do cover. I think I can't. Nothing jumps out as weird or wonderful. I'll probably remember as soon as we finish this, but I think sort of not trying to pigeonhole myself. That's where the development arm of what I'm trying to do for my own projects and with partners in terms of the getting sites
yeah,
ourselves. And in that sense, at this stage, that's very much aimed about the planning gain side of things because that's what I know
yeah,
and that's what I'm comfortable. So it's finding sites, getting planning, and in theory, selling them.
yeah,
But me being me now and independent and fully flexible and spoken to a lot of people this year and met a lot of people who all sort of approach things slightly differently. And I'm now able to sort of fit into whatever sort of project role that is. So yeah, it's exciting of what the future might hold in that regard.
yeah. No, it's cool. Can I ask one or two stupid questions for like
Go for it.
planning, like myths in my head, right? You can debunk them. One is it? I've always thought that a refurbishment is going to be more difficult than a new build. Is that a myth?
From a planning side of things,
Yeah,
not really. I would say
yeah,
planning,
okay,
it's all site specific. And if you're doing a change of use, it's ultimately, going to be bound in some respects by what you can and do under the use classes order. And are there any restrictive policies that mean you can't do what you want? And how we might get around or satisfy a restrictive policy.
yeah,
But that can be the same in a new build as well. I think from a planning perspective, what sometimes become known are problems, it's almost irrelevant what the starting point is. Planning can be a challenge regardless of what it is.
Maybe we'll ask the poor architect how they feel about it. They might feel different, but
I think, yeah, from a point of actually construction, and if you're dealing with a conversion and a refurb of a particularly challenging building, and it's sometimes then more cost effective or better for the scheme if there is a demolition and rebuild. But from a planning point,
yeah,
whatever is needed will be then sort of the advice that I would try and give.
yeah, fair enough. The other question I had in my head, because so even this morning, so before we were doing the podcast, oh my gosh, Greg, whatever you take away from this, not that you're taking I'm probably learning more about planning by asking these silly questions than you, but like in a small, nimble business, I use AI all the time, right? This morning, I was plugging in a little script in the background, which is going to take my calendars to do this, that. I think it's a really good time saver. Now, when we were talking earlier about this is way back when, 20 years ago, when you were kind of coming into the the room with the dusty drawings and the cloth. Like, to me, it sounds like AI could be involved a lot in the planning space, especially potentially to remove all the data entry or all the mundane parts of stuff. Do you see an opportunity there with all the technology that's happening, Greg, at the moment?
Yeah, I think the opportunity is there, hugely. And I think if planning's always seen as one of the blockers to development and growth because things take so long and there's no certainty and all the criticisms that we hear. And I think, anything that can genuinely help and improve a service should be looked at. And there is a drive from the government to sort of improve sort of digital planning, and there's all sorts of components to sort of a lot of sort of planning reform that is being discussed and implemented at the moment, and part of that are aspects to try and use AI and the technology that is there. So there's some, an example being that they want to speed up sort of validation processes of planning applications, and you can submit an application and it can take anywhere between a week to a month to sometimes beyond of even getting it rubber stamped. So you get very excited and tell the client that you've submitted an application, and then nothing for about a month sometimes, because it's going through what has to be quite sometimes a detailed process, that all the documents have to be correct that were expected and are things within those sufficiently detailed or to make the application valid. Now, if you could speed up that process, then great. But I guess, there's always going to be risks with any new technology. But there's certainly things that should or could be done. So I don't know if you could have a permitted development application that is to some extent a box ticking exercise. So, is the extension X meters in depth? Is it X meters in height? I'm sure there will be ways that those applications can be chucked into a computer, and 5 seconds later will tell you if it's permitted development or not, and your certificate could be granted. Now, I would only say those ones where you don't there's no sort of judgment to be had, there's no balance, there's no nuance to the decision making. So that would be different from an actual planning application that requires that review. So yes, it's whatever it is that you're looking at, but is something acceptable in planning terms. But I think those that are a simple, is it black and white, does it meet the criteria, then I think there's certainly some applications that could be taken out of a case officer's caseload, and people could crack on with the more sort of challenging and time consuming ones, or ones where there are judgments to be made.
Yeah, I think so. Or even if it's just getting rid of the mundane, right? And then it brings it up to you, Greg, to make a decision. I mean, that will probably be the best bit, because there's probably loads of red tape. And we're not really a political podcast at all, but there's a lot of pressure from the government right now to build stuff, isn't there?
There is. So it's just making sure that we don't become, I think those that don't require, call it a judgment, should and could be taken sort of out of a system where they sit in someone's in tray for 8 weeks before they make a decision. I think things that do require some judgment, we shouldn't necessarily fully rely on AI for that. But there are certainly some time, if you're a planning officer and you're going through 500 objections that might all say the same thing, I'm sure there is a review that you could do and look for keywords, but where that is the case, you would still need to probably go back and review that. I think that's where I am at with sort of relying on AI for anything, is I sort of use it a bit, and I'm sure there's people who use it way more than I do and less than I do, but the way I sort of pitch it with myself is put whatever I am doing into it that I need it. But almost I don't rely on it and then go and do my own due diligence, because if I'm giving advice to a client, I need to know that that is correct. So whatever it is, whether it's a bit of planning history, whether it's a flood zone designation, whether it's listed building, whatever it could be, and yeah, fair enough, it will provide that information, but I will still then go and do my
Have
own
to check.
because yeah, maybe that's my, I don't know, I wouldn't call myself a dinosaur with it all or anything like that, but I am a little bit untrustworthy of it, because there are things that that you hear of, the stories of, not necessarily in planning, but it can, the hallucinations that may arise, and giving you fake case law or giving you something, but then not tell you that and go, yeah, it's fine, don't worry. It's like, okay, well, I don't rely on it yet. I rely on it for a little bit of shortcuts to a degree, a signpost perhaps, but then I will still go and do my own due diligence on whatever it is that I need.
There's a lot of, I haven't used a lot of AI now. There's different levels, and I think you get what you pay for, right? And the different levels there, I think, especially when people are on like ChatGPT 3 and they whack it in, you're going to get the minimum amount of processing from them. Therefore, it's way more likely to hallucinate. It's way more likely to sound convincing. So you're completely right. I would never get it to make a judgment. However, to double check like a piece of text or something could be where the opportunity is. Or if like you said, if it was something really, really, really basic, I don't know, like like my mum's getting a little patio extension or something so simple, then maybe it'd be all right. But then the moment it gets to anything complicated, it would be risky.
Yeah, but I think also in my role, in the sense of having to make sure I think everything's right and I understand it myself, even if it was something, call it in theory as simple as filling in a planning application form. The detail that you have to put on that is it's very important. So you need to make sure that's right. So I don't think I'd use it for that yet, even if I had a little AI agent that sits virtually next to me to go and do that, because in theory it could be time saving, but I think the risk of something not being right, or you need to double check something yourself, you'd need to know anyway. So
so the role of the planner's not going away. Like people,
I hope not. But I would bet that it can give good advice and can do, call it the basic elements, and there could be a world of where like with any job, it's a case of, is it going to remove the need for that job? I think for where we're at now, it's a case of, can it make that person doing that job better, quicker, more efficient, and providing the people, us using it, are aware of that and take it as what it is at the moment, we can do it to become better and quicker and more efficient for things. But hopefully not.
I have to bite my tongue, because I have quite radical views on it, where I as a business owner, I would like to lean into it, and then you hire 2 or 3 key people, and then you have all the AI. But that's very controversial. And down the pub, Greg, I've been told off by certain people that
I think it's here, isn't it? And only going to get more advanced. So I think to a degree, we should be incorporating it. But not for the sake of, I think, judgment and balance and putting our own personality on things as well, because you could get two planning consultants that could say two different things, and neither would be necessarily wrong in how to, set a strategy. So I think that there should and will be a case for sort of individuality about doing things.
Yeah, fair enough. It's the last thing I'll say on it is that over the last few months, I do this podcast, I always ask this question, where it's kind of a tag-along question. However, I think we've at that point now where AI is not really a tag-along question, is it? It's basically going to be changing how we both work for the next 4 or 5 years in our sectors. I guess that's what that's what I'm realizing. It's that intrinsic now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think if, as a new business owner, there is a lot of things to think about outside of, call it the day job of planning consultancy, that I have actually found it quite interesting, sort of the administrative side, for now. But the longer it goes on and the longer I run things that are just, and a lot of it, to be fair, at the moment is sort of automated, I'm sure, in terms of just general accounting software and things like that. But you are still inputting things. And I think if it took that side away, where it can then free up, as a self-employed business owner, that I'm not going to employ someone to do that, because just the way I can work at the moment, things like that certainly should and could be incorporated to what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk all about eagle planning in 1 second, but on that note, before you go into it, a few crazy ideas for you in the audience. I'll tell you what I use AI in the business for. Another good one is you make a room, or like you can do a GPT, I guess. And if you put your management accounts, your profit and loss, and all that stuff, and keep it up to date, it's very good as the business owner of giving you honest feedback with yourself. Sometimes it's a bit like looking into the void, because it's like, hey, your spend's crept up, but it's a really nice sound point. It's like a conversation with an accountant, without the accountant. And then I find it also quite good for, again, this is the kind of theme here. You need a HR consultant, but it's quite nice to sometimes get, you query your employment contract. You never draft stuff, but this is the kind of thing that I use it for in the business owner, or even like, say now you put an ad for yourself. So say now, Greg, at some point you're going to hire an assistant or whatever. Really good to start getting things and bouncing those ideas on. But I find the art form is setting up what's called less running the prompts, which can be effective, but setting up dedicated GPTs for it. Like, you are the Eagle Planning's accountant, or we're having a conversation with the business owner. Here's the profit and loss. Here's of every month for the what trajectories, what could you do, and that kind of stuff's really cool. So just throwing it in there for anyone that's listening who might find that useful. But that's what I found really useful at the moment.
I think it's just trying to use it for anything, see if it gives you back of what you want, in that sense. That I think the capabilities, and that's, I'm using it at a really basic level. There are things out there that will really blow your mind, and if you were able to use it for whatever business you are in, I'm sure is pretty incredible, and will only get more.
You get better.
But I think and I think just where there are things to make you efficient and better, investigate.
I think we should investigate, and I want to investigate. So let's investigate Eagle Planning while we're winding down now. So here it is, as long as I can bring it on the screen. That helps, doesn't it? Oh my goodness gracious me. Here it is. So here's Eagle. The Eagle has landed, Greg.
Indeed.
Right? Tell it, give me a little, I'll have a little browse around, but we got some of the projects that you've done here, right? And I'm going to bring up the website link now for everyone in the audience, which is www.eagleplanning.co.uk. So this is a mix of all the stuff that you've worked on over the years, Greg. Is
over
that right?
the years, and that's where the things you think about when you're starting a business, like putting a website up and making it clear of what you have done, and it's clearly starting a new business. You're not going to have a load of projects, because
you did them all.
Indeed,
we're all too shy about this stuff, aren't we?
No, and it's those sort of things that you don't even think about before you make the leap and do things like that. So yeah, it's thankfully all the previous clients had fully cleared image rights and
Brilliant.
for me to use them, which is yeah, I'm fully appreciative of, because I have worked on them and I have sort of led each of these projects to successful conclusions when it comes to planning, and yeah, just shows sort of the range of experience. And that goes back to what I sort of said at the start, is I don't necessarily want to pigeonhole myself now that I am sort of called, a sole employee at Eagle Planning.
Yeah,
Why shouldn't I sort of still pitch myself that I can work on large scale urban regeneration sites? Because I can and do.
you have.
So
Yeah,
whilst I appreciate sort of, larger sort of developer clients may like to still go with, respectively larger consultancies, there's no harm in having those conversations and seeing what people can do. And yeah, and then the flip side, it then sort of shows everything else that I've done in terms of sort of smaller heritage, little sort of backland sites, education, and then the final one on the bottom right is my own project that picked up a site with a business partner, in this case for the development sites, and that's been a journey itself. So taking what I've known through my own sort of planning consultancy career into to try and deliver my own. So yeah, it's all good.
excellent. We got the testimonials and everything. So
Got to have testimonials. People
they're
did
the
genuinely say these. These are not made up by ChatGPT.
they're all real names. They're real people. We can find them on
Ring them up.
LinkedIn.
Ring them up.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I
Yeah.
think that anyone setting up a business should be applauded, because it's hard. It's hard at the start. I did a year on my own, Greg, before I decided to I've gone a bit too far in, but there we go. That's okay, no problem. Before setting up, and it was one of the best times, but it is the hardest bit, isn't it? So having done
Yeah.
that year now, do you have any like experience, wisdom that you would impart for someone who's thinking of doing it as well?
My advice would be, if you are thinking about it and are confident in doing it, is to do it,
Yeah,
because
cool.
you can often sit and think and not do. You can perhaps, whilst you do need to think about it and make sure you're financially comfortable, certainly for the first few months, to get up and running, do that. But whereas some people say, oh, it's when people do say, oh, it's brave stepping out on your own and doing things like that, I don't think I necessarily gave. I mean, I do think about things, let's just say that, but I didn't think it's overly brave. And I think lots of people do it, and lots of people can be successful in whatever industry. And I think if you have the drive within you to do it and you are thinking about it, that's where I'd say go for it, because the worst it can happen is at least you've tried,
Yeah,
and you've given it a go. And if it is for you, then you've made the right decision. So I think, yeah, it's just get out there, speak to people in other industries as well, who start it, because you pick things up. Don't just surround yourselves with, even call it in the development industry, I spoke to a lot of people, friends who run sort of different businesses, and yeah, people always did say you won't look back once you've done it. And as of today, I'm happy and not looking back. But yeah, that's the thing, is who knows what's around the corner. But so
yeah.
far so good.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, you can see that you're busy, and I think even going up to the 1 year mark is a success rate and stuff. And while I know you're going to continue, but I say to people, you can even do it and go back. You learn so much skills from doing that, and I think, especially as you said, you've gone from the public sector to the private, and now you run your own business. You see that range, Greg, isn't it, of different things, and I think it really is a skill that once you worked on your own, like you said, you wake up and it's like, okay, if I take a day off, nothing gets done. I think
No.
once you work through that and get the balance and all that stuff, I think it's personally rewarding.
Yeah, it is, and it's accepting that, isn't it? It's, yeah, if you don't do something, it's on you to then to do something, in effect, that you have to go to that networking meeting, because if you don't go, you're not going to get the opportunity. So you
Yeah.
need to just put yourself out there, speak to a lot of people, really get people to know you, because in the business it is as much obviously professional skill, but it's also personalities, and everyone would like to work with people they get on with, and like, and yeah, it's doing that, following up on things. If you've met someone, don't leave it. You've got nothing to lose by picking up the phone or sending that email, or yeah, it's just keeping in touch with people.
Yeah, fair play. Good bit of advice. Normally at the end, Greg, when we're winding down, I say to the guest, if they want to ask me a question or anything. We've met once or twice. Are there any burning questions that you'd like to ask me while we're here?
I think if I guess you're further ahead in the journey of setting up. What have you
Yeah.
learned from that first year? Because there's a lot that happens in the first year, and you need to get yourself sort of set
Yeah.
up for future.
Yeah.
What sort of advice for years 2 and 3 and beyond would you give?
Yeah, fair play. And I think for me, juggling things around in the first year was hard. So sometimes I do a bit of marketing, and then that almost be cost of the job that I'm currently working on. But the job I'm currently working on, I know it's coming to the end, so I need to market. So getting through that juggle, for me personally, I've spoken to a few people, and I think the big choice for you, Greg, down the line is coming is, do I have this amazing business, which is your job, as in you're running it, and you enjoy that, and you're still doing the planning, which we know you can do. Look at all the amazing projects you've done. I mean, if someone picks up and uses you, I think, well, you're basically getting someone extremely credible, amazing. So do you keep doing that, and then you keep working on the projects, and it's a lifestyle business for you, still a lot of hard work because you've got all that stuff going on? Or do you at some point then think, I'm going to bring people in, which has its own set of challenges, to grow the business? Now, when it's just yourself, there will be at some point a capacity of projects that you can work on. It's just natural, isn't it? Like there's only 2 or 3 or 4 that you can spin, that you can give the attention to. But maybe that's enough. And so that's the big decision. And I don't think it's as clear cut as like, I have to build this to be the next Savills or whatever. Everyone's different. So for me, I didn't want to do that part of recruitment anymore, where you're maybe doing some things which are the same that I've been doing for 12 years. So I was like, for me, I have to grow the business. That's just me. But there are moments where my day's completely full of other tasks. So I'm doing HR, or I'm building up the ecosystem. I'm trying to get new clients in. So I'm still busy, but it's a different kind of busy. And I don't think that's for everyone. So what I'm trying to say is there's different types of businesses, and none of them are wrong, But I think the next step is working out what one suits you, and there's no rush,
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, because a lot of people, within about 2 weeks of setting up, I get recruiters phone and say, "Are you looking for anyone?" And I'm like,
Oh,
I'm not
no.
saying no, never, because I don't know. And I think
Yeah.
it's year 1. I've liked it. It's gone well enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, as and when things evolve, I'll see.
Yeah.
The joy of doing what I'm doing is I can be open to things,
Yeah.
and whether that's the growth on the planning consultancy side or growth on the development side, we shall see, which is exciting. And I think
Yeah.
that's going back to the part where it's, if you come in from a world that you've always been salaried, and you kind of know what's going on for the next 6 months to a year to 10 years, who knows. But now I don't know what the future holds, but I like that now. I've kind of
Yeah.
got used to that and excited by it, and being open to conversations, and being able to do whatever may come my way.
Yeah, no, and good for you. And like, it's some crazy fact. I know in the construction, the built environment, I mean, a lot of people, I think, especially in London, you're used to big companies. But if we're going to broader UK, there's so many smaller architecture practices which build up a huge part of the economy, huge. And I'm technically an SME. I've got 4 members of staff now, and that's, you know, has been a challenge as well. But it's all these companies which build up the UK, and it's super, super important. Like someone can get access to all of your skill set now when you're in this part of the journey. I'm sure they can have access to you in the future, but right now, this is where you are and what you're doing. And maybe that's a nice way to end this podcast on at the moment. So you've done the amazing first year. You've gone out, you've built up Eagle Planning, which is amazing. Now people can get in contact with you, even if it's to have a chat, to work with you, all this other stuff. Greg, how can they get in contact with you if they want to?
They can get me, on eagleplanning.co.uk or LinkedIn. On the website, there's just a WhatsApp link if that's easier, just to say hello and I've got this site, or can we just have a chat about things? Because all the new projects that I work on just start with that. Let's have a look at the site, because I'll be honest with you if I think it's a goer or not, and then if it is, let's take it forward together. But if it's not, and I think there's a huge risk of doing something, I'll say that. I think it's So reach out if you're looking at any planning opportunity.
Yeah, you're open. Well,
Absolutely.
Open and honest, and why wouldn't you be honest? Because it'd be a waste of your time as well, isn't it? So,
Well, it's funny that you think it's some of the projects that I've picked up that I sort of alluded to earlier, that people had ended up in problems that hadn't engaged certainly with me at that stage. I've certainly noticed now in my new environment, and sometimes people I've met who either didn't know they needed a planning consultant or they'd had bad advice before. It's like, well, who's offering poor advice that ends up costing a client delays and money is not so good. But I would try to say I won't ever do that. I'll be honest from the start and say how we're going to get from A to B. So anyone who does need planning consultancy, feel free to give us a call.
And they should. Well, thank you so much, Greg, for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out to be here with me and the audience. I personally appreciate it, and I'm sure that many people will as well. Do get in contact with Greg. Check out as well, one last time, it's www.eagleplanning.co.uk. We have to support as well people setting up the business. So I want you all to go to the website, even if it helps the Google algorithm. It all adds up. As you know, Greg, that's one thing we got to do as well. You got to build the website. You got to do the work. It never ends for us, but we wouldn't have it any other way, right?
Absolutely not. So no, thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, on that note, I'm going to end the live stream in a second. Thank you so much to you in the audience. Was this interesting? Did you learn anything about being a planning consultant? And if you want to pester me or Greg about anything, just let us know and get in contact. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the live stream now. Have a lovely day wherever you are. Enjoy the weather and speak soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.